Our friends at FanDuel took it upon themselves to release odds, not just to make the playoff, but to miss the playoff. And it's 12 teams, as you well know this year, much to my chagrin. And so I was looking over these things earlier, and I had Jesse send me an entire list, and I noticed some things that stood out to me. So these are all available. You can bet these right now if it is legal in your jurisdiction at FanDuel. The SEC and the Big Ten have 8 of the top 9 odds teams to make the playoff. Now, you might think to yourself, well, yeah, that makes sense. That's where a majority of the weight in college football is. That's true. Let me remind you, that's not the way the playoff is structured, at least this year. Yes, you will probably have plenty of SEC and Big Ten flavor, but also the Big 12's got to make that thing. The ACC's got to make that thing. The G5 has got to make it. And as you'll hear in a second, there's probably a lot of value. If you think you have the Big 12 or the ACC handicap, there's not a single team with minus odds to make the playoff. This is not to win the title, guys. This is just to make the playoff. So Michigan's the first thing that stood out to me. Michigan is pretty much even money, make or miss. It's minus 110 juice either way right now. And if you don't care about betting or never bet, that just means our buddies at FanDuel think they've got just as good a shot to make it as they do to miss it. In a 12-team field, I think we need to keep hammering that home for at least a few more months. So they play Texas this year in week 2, I believe it is. May very well find us up there on the yet-to-be-named tour this fall. They play Oregon this year. Conference game. Go figure. They play Ohio State, obviously. The reason I mention those is those are 3 of the top 5 teams in the odds to make the college football playoff this year. Quarterback, new. Staff, whole lot of new. Head coach, new. Also, they just combined to send 18 guys to the NFL Combine. So, yes, there's a lot of newness there. We're going to talk about their defense a little bit later. It is very possible that they could lose 3 games and make the playoff. It's very possible someone in the SEC or the Big Ten could do that this year. Is it Michigan? If you think yes, there you go, minus 110. I also noticed Bama. I think maybe, there's no maybe. They are definitely going to be downgraded because of the Saban exit, and there's a lot of new at Alabama for the first time in a little while. I guess what we have to figure out amongst ourselves is the Saban downgrade being overly weighted a little bit in the odds market? You're not used to seeing that, whether it's the Cowboys in the NFL or your Alabamas, Ohio States, etc. in the college game. Normally, it's the other way. Normally, you're going to have to pay a premium to be betting yes or be betting over or laying or taking the points with them. Well, now, you look at Alabama, they got the 10th best odds to make the playoff. They play 4 teams with an over-under win total of 9.5 or higher. That's life in the SEC. That's nothing new. Yeah, they go to Oklahoma before they play the Iron Bowl. That's new. But they're going to have a tough schedule. You've got a returning quarterback, but you've got an entire new offensive system that he's in. But here's the thing I'm thinking about. So let's take those 4 games they play against teams that figure to be in the 9.5 or better win total range. What if they split them? What if they split them? What if they go 10-2? What if they don't even go to the SEC championship game? Let's just say Alabama loses a couple of games to really good teams. One of them ends up, playing the other in the SEC championship game. And let's say Alabama is just a 10-2 team. I think that team's in the playoff. I think a 10-2 from either of those Power 2 conferences, conference championship game or not, is probably in the playoff. So I'm very interested to see Bama that far down that odds board. There's no Big 12 on this entire list. There's no Big 12 in the top 9. That's what I'm talking about. There's no Big 12 team. Kansas State, we were there last week. They've got plus 290 odds. Keep in mind, at least one of these teams is going to make it from that conference. Utah is at plus 310. Arizona is at plus 650. I got some things to say about the Big 12 later. I am very interested that not only in the Big 12, is there no team that's the definitive favorite, and is there no team that's minus odds to make the playoff? But that's the same in the ACC. This is really mind-blowing to me because there are 2 sort of known commodities. There are at least 2, and I would argue 3, but there are at least 2 rosters that you would look at and you would say that's a playoff caliber roster. Florida State is that. Clemson is that. Now, Miami is that as well this year, but Miami has not gotten close to a playoff spot. So I know my audience. Because I interact with you guys a lot on the Miami front. I know you'll have to see it to believe it from Miami. But just for argument's sake for a second, The fact that you have those kind of talent rosters over there in the ACC, Florida State's plus 164 to make the playoff. Clemson's plus 172, Miami plus 260. And then, guys, you don't go that far down the cliff before you get to Louisville at plus 360, and then it's NC State at plus 590. So the point there is there's probably a lot of figuring it out on the fly, even from the odds makers' perspective. Like even from our friends over at FanDuel, they've never done this before. They've never capped or built an odds market of a yes or no, make or miss the playoff with a 12-team field. And not just the field's that big, guys, you also have the parameters in place that are in place. You got the whole 5-7, and that debate raged on for a little while during the winter. So this is all available right now. It's not hypothetical. These sorts of segments used to be hypothetical. It's not hypothetical. You can go get yourself some action on that right now if you want to.